Good morning. Welcome to the Planning Hearing Officer hearing for June 5th, 2024. My name is Cassandra Pruitt, and I will be conducting the first hearing today as hearing officer. The Planning Hearing Officer meeting is being broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live and high definition on the city's webpage at glendaleca.gov/live, at youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called Cablecast, and then choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city's website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. This morning, we have two cases involving discretionary permit applications. The hearings will proceed as follows. First, the hearing officer will read the description of the application request, then read the reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. Then the case planner will make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. Next, the applicant will be called up or connected by telephone, stating their name, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Then others in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties who are present at the hearing will be called upon to give comments, stating their name and speaking within a 3-minute time limit. After in-person commenters speak, then callers on hold will be connected to share their comments within a 3-minute time limit. For all speakers, whether in person or by phone, please note that a timer will chime when you have 30 seconds left of your time limit, and then it will chime again when the time limit has been reached. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to make closing comments within a 5-minute time limit in response to testimonies given in the preceding steps. Lastly, the hearing will be closed and the case will be taken under submission. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the required findings set forth in the Glendale Municipal Code, then the project can either be approved or approved with conditions. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses, and who have provided their name and contact information. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Under the appeal provisions of the Glendale Municipal Code, Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal must file online using the city's permit portal. For any additional information regarding the appeal process and submittal, please contact the case planner. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners and occupants located within 500 feet of the subject property. Public notices were also physically posted on the site in question and placed in the local newspaper. These official proceedings of the planning hearing officer's hearing are being televised live and may be viewed online on the city's website. We will now begin the hearing. The first item on the agenda is for the project address 1058 Roberta Avenue. The case number is PCUP 22-08994. The applicant's name is Rodney Kahn. The project description is a conditional use permit to allow the continued use of a residential congregate living facility, medical, in the R2250 medium density residential zone. There was one comment received from other city departments, and that was from the Glendale Water and Power Department. And they're asking that the applicant install backflow equipment, which is equipment related to the connection of the building's water line to the city's water. That apparently was the only comment received. There were no public comment letters received prior to the hearing. And at this time, I would like to call on the case planner to provide an overview of the project.
Yes, good morning. Planning Hearing Officer Pruitt and audience. Shoik Yepremian, the case planner for this application. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to say that I'm pleased to be back to the City of Glendale Planning Office and work with my former and new colleagues. I will start the presentation. Again, this is a conditional use permit renewal application, PCUP 22-08994, located at 1058 Roberta Avenue. Just a brief background, this conditional use permit was initially approved back in 2016 under case number 1603272 to allow the use of 12-bed residential congregate living facility medical in R2250 medium density residential zone. The approval at the time had 11 conditions, including a condition which required them to reapply after 5 years. The location of this site is, again on Roberta Avenue, 1058 Roberta. It's in between Glen Oaks Boulevard and San Fernando Road. Both of those are commercial major thoroughfares. The site is surrounded by other multifamily development, and I highlighted the site specifically in red lines. I have photographs of the subject site. One is the view from Roberta Avenue, and the second photo is again from Roberta, but from the alley direction. As you can see, it's a two-story building. The site plan, there are no changes proposed to the site plan or to the building. The lot is a corner lot, approximately 8,787 square feet. The site was developed back in 2019 as a 5,600 square foot, two-story residential congregate living facility, medical, with 4 parking spaces. I put the first and second floor plan just for your information. The first floor plan has 6 bedrooms, a common living and dining area, and 2 two-car garages, which are accessed from the alleyway. The second floor plan shows 2 additional bedrooms and 2 sitting areas. Again, this is a site where it's a corner property. It has an alley to the north of the subject property and to the east. California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, this project, this application is exempt under Class 1 existing facilities because there are no expansion of the use or operation and no expansion of the building itself. According to our zoning code, 4 required findings should be made, and the burden of proof is on the applicant. I will read the 4 required findings. Number 1, that the proposed use will be consistent with the various elements and objectives of the general plan. Number 2, that the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the public health or safety, the general welfare, or the environment. Number 3, that the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. And number 4, that adequate public and private facilities such as utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, and traffic circulation measures are or will be provided for the proposed use. These findings were properly addressed back in 2016 conditional use permit application, and same with this application that was filed. Also would like to mention that as Planning Hearing Officer Pruitt mentioned, that staff routed the CUP application to other departments for comments. Neighborhood Services had no comments or concerns. Glendale Water and Power submitted comments. I recommend that the applicant contact their office to get further information on those comments, or we can work with that department directly through the applicant to get further clarification. And finally, based on the facts of the case as submitted with this application, staff believes all findings of fact for the conditional use permit renewal application have been made, and therefore we recommend approval of this application with 12 conditions, which I have provided a copy to the hearing officer. Just to add some additional notes, public notices were mailed to neighboring properties, both to property owners and occupants within 500-foot radius, and the site was posted by the applicant at least 10 days prior to the hearing. We did not receive any communications, written or oral, from the members of the public regarding this renewal application. This concludes my presentation. The applicant's representative is present this morning, Mr. Rodney Khan, in case you have any questions in terms of the project, the operation, or the business, and we're also here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yepremian. I do have 2 quick follow-up questions. So the comments that were routed to the other departments included the police department? And
I believe so.
Okay, and so no comments were received that would indicate that there's been any complaints or any kind of detrimental impact to
No,
the surrounding
no.
community from this use?
The project was also routed to neighborhood services, where they would get the initial complaints if there were any, but no comments or concerns.
Okay, great. And then the recommended conditions of approval are now excluding a condition that would result in this expiring and then having to come back in 5 years.
Correct. The initial, the 2016 decision included a 5-year reapplication condition. We did remove that condition from this recommended decision conditions, yes.
Okay, thank you. I would like to now call on the applicant. Please state your name for the record.
I certainly will. Good morning, Ms. Pruitt, city staff, and the community. My name is Rodney Kahn, and my offices are located here in the beautiful city of Glendale. As Ms. Yepremian stated, this is to renew an approval that had a term limit, as you just mentioned. That's why we're here today. There are no changes that are proposed to the use, to the number of beds, or the operation at all. I wanted to start off by giving you or sharing with you some information about how the facility is run and the types of patients at the facility. As Ms. Yepremian pointed out, there's actually 12 patients that can be occupying the 8 bedrooms. Currently, they have 8 patients at the facility. The patients being served are mentally alert, physically disabled individuals who may be on ventilators, patients who have a diagnosis of terminal illness, a diagnosis of a life-threatening illness, or both, patients who are catastrophically and severely disabled, and there's services that are offered to them. Most of these patients at this facility are either bed-bound or wheelchair-bound. In terms of the staffing, there is always a nurse on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there's also nursing assistants on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At times, there are independent contractors that visit, such as occupational, physical, or respiratory therapists, and they come on an as-needed basis. In terms of the deliveries, there is 1 delivery a week for groceries, and there's 2 deliveries per month, so 1 every other week for medical supplies. And Ms. Kalajian pointed out, we actually have 5 on-site parking spaces. We have 4 that are enclosed and 1 to the east, if you will, that's open. And you can see that in the floor plans. I will go back to the findings of fact that are needed to be made. And as was pointed out, all the findings for approval made at the 2016 hearing still apply. The first, the use will be consistent with the various elements and objectives of the general plan. Congregate living health facility medical will be consistent with the housing element that emphasizes the need to create these types of housing opportunities for all segments of our community. The community facilities element discusses the bed need in our city as it relates to hospital capacity and providing long-term beds in a communal environment, and that frees up hospital beds, and that's what this facility is doing. The land use element of the general plan states that this use is allowed with specific conditions. And then last, the circulation element classifies Roberta as a neighborhood street that can accommodate this traffic. In addition, this use is also part of the City of Glendale's continuum of care and serves an important underserved segment of our community. The second item, as it relates to the associated structures not being detrimental to the public, the California Department of Aging is the governmental agency that administers these programs that serve older adults, adults with disabilities, and residents in long-term care facilities throughout our state. And the CDA, California Department of Aging, supports this facility and this use. The third item or finding that needs to be made is that the facility will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses. We already talked about the context or concept of the neighborhood. We have multifamily, we have some single family, and we also have commercial. That's in part of that area. So this facility has proven itself to be compatible and fit in nicely with the adjacent land uses. And as you asked, there's no consideration or complaints from any of the city departments. And then lastly, as it relates to adequate public and private facilities such as utilities, landscaping, parking, the site is served by public and private utilities. Glendale Water and Power, as they have mentioned, will continue to provide both water and electrical service. Sewer capacity is fine in the area. Other utilities such as gas, phone, and cable are already available to the site. The parking itself, as I mentioned, there's 5 total parking spaces, 4 enclosed and 1 outdoor. That's more than adequate for the staff for this facility. Obviously, none of the patients drive. The existing congregate living health facility gives these residents the opportunity to enjoy their lives within this strong, healthy community of ours. In conclusion, we need these types of facilities, and this is an important facility. And I'd like to compliment the owners who run this professional operation, and they truly care about their patients that live at the facility. We have reviewed the conditions of approval. I was going to say we agree to comply with all of them. I do have a question, though, as to the Glendale Water and Power requirement for us to provide a backflow device. We're not making any changes. We're not making any modifications. We're not doing any adding square footage or adding beds, adding anything. It's just to continue the facility as is. So I'm not sure why we would be required to do that, and so I would question us needing to do that. Other than that, we would comply with all the conditions listed. And I'll conclude my remarks and be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. I have noted your inquiry about the Glendale Water and Power requirement, and I'll look into that. You had mentioned that there are 8 beds and not 12. Is that because the prior CUP allowed 12 beds, and this CUP would ask to continue to allow 12 beds, even though at this time there's only 8 beds? Is that right?
So, Ms. Pruitt, there are 8 bedrooms with 12 participants. Right now, we just have 8 participants at the facility, but we can increase that to 12. We want to do the same number, 12, as was previously approved.
Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned the 5 on-site parking spaces. Those are accessed through the alley, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions at this time.
Great, thank you.
Do we have any callers on the line?
Ms. Pruitt, I do not see any callers so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing as there was no public comment, no rebuttal is necessary. So at this time, I am going to take the case under submission. So I'd like to thank everyone who participated in this hearing, and the information will be considered along with the case file documentation, and the case is now taken under submission. So the hearing for this particular agenda item is now closed. We will take a brief 1 to 2 minute break, and then we will resume for the next agenda item, and that will be a different hearing officer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dennis Joe. I will be conducting hearing officer for the second item this morning, which is located at 5119 Valentine Drive. The case number is PVAR 211-9057. The applicant is Jorge Lana and Jenna Rubia. I hope I got those correct. A brief description of the project's request is to construct an approximately a little bit under 3,000 square foot, 3-story single-family dwelling with an attached 2-car garage, which is requesting 4 variances, which in summary, it's going to be a reduced driveway length at approximately 8 feet 2 inches, where 18 feet is required. A retaining wall is in the street front setback, proposed at 13 feet, where the maximum is going to be 5 feet with the street front setback. A variance to build exceed the height at 50 feet 8 inches, where the code requires, or the maximum is going to be 32 feet, and the last variance is an 8-foot 2-inch street front setback, where 15 feet is required. Before I call on to the case planner to do the presentation, I'm just going to go over the comments reviewed by other interdepartmental divisions. We do have comments received from the fire department. They do have some standard comments. They just comment about emergency access from rescue windows and doors, standard fuel modification and landscaping plans. From Water and Power, I do see some standard comments about regular permits. Water Department is the Water Division is requesting, they do want to point out there is no water service from Valentine, and they spotted that there's a 6-inch water main from Roar, which is I'm going to call it the lower half of the lot, or maybe the rear, because I think you're taking access from Valentine. And pretty standard that they're saying the proposed needs to be, all costs and responsibility will be on the applicant, but they are pointing out that the proposed water service will have to be taken from Roar, which is from the rear. I'm going to call it from the rear of the lower portion of the lot. Other comments received. I do have some recently received from Public Works Engineering. Most of it is standard, but I do receive something that I do want to ask some questions about. One of their comments is that there's to be no private retaining walls should be constructed in the public right-of-way, which I will be addressing some questions in that. So when we do get to that public speaking for the applicant, I'm going to ask some questions. Recently, yesterday evening, a comment letter was received, not necessarily into absolute disapproval of the project, but they do have some concerns addressed. They do have some comments about the massing or the monstrosity. They call it, praising from, not to, I should use a euphemism, but just the concerns of the mass of the appearance from Roar from the rear. And maybe we can talk about maybe some ways that we could reduce it, maybe pushing it into the ground, because that's going to help you out in DRB, but just maybe we can talk about some of that. And they do have some concerns about the reduced setback and pushing the parking, which would be, guest parking. People temporarily show up on the driveway, and since we have a reduced setback at 8 feet, cars would be their trunk or the rear portion would be on the back. So they have some concern about parking and fire truck access. But I did receive, or actually reviewed the comments from fire department. They didn't have address any real concerns about fire truck access. But before I move on into the speaking portion, as stated before, I'm going to call on the case planner, Roger Kiesel. If you can give me a brief overview of the project with the presentation, I greatly appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Mr. Joe. Good morning. The applicant is requesting approval of the construction of an approximately 2,900 square foot single-family residence located at 519 Valentine Drive. The residence will be located on a almost 11,000 square foot double frontage lot on the west side of Valentine Drive. and the east side of Rohr Street between Nesmith Road and Rohr Street. The subject lot is in the R1R FAR District 2 zone. Let me just go over the PowerPoint presentation real quickly. Again, the project is 2,900 square feet, 3-story single-family residence with an attached 2-car garage. There are 4 variance requests. The first one is to allow a new single-family house to have less than the minimum 15-foot street front setback. The proposed single-family house will have an 8-foot 2-inch setback, street front setback. The second variance request is to allow a driveway depth of 8 feet 2 inches. The standards variance is to allow a single-family residence with less than an 18-foot depth driveway. The third variance is to allow building height of approximately 50 feet 8 inches. The standard, or the variance there would be to exceed the allowable building height, which is a maximum of 32 feet. And then finally, to allow up to 13-foot high retaining walls within the street front setback. Those typically, the maximum in the street front setback is 5 feet in height. So this is location map. Again, it's the west side of Valentine Drive and the east side of Rohr. The property is highlighted in red. The site plan, the brown area shows the area of the house. The driveway is a solid gray. This is the lowest floor. So you could see this from Rohr, but not from Valentine. The second floor is the main living floor with a kitchen, dining room, living room. And then the top floor, which is visible from from Valentine, contains a garage, a bedroom, and a study. This is the front elevation, as you will be able to see it from Valentine Drive. The rear elevation from Rohr, and then the 2 side elevations, north and south. Here's a section drawing, and then some photos. So this is looking sort of south on Valentine. This is looking north on Valentine. This is looking at the site up from Rohr. Another picture of the site from Rohr. And then I'll conclude with the variance findings. So staff believes that findings can be made for each of the variances. With regard to the first finding, that strict application of the provisions of the code would result in practical difficulties and unnecessary hardship, inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of the standards. Approval of a reduced street front setback will allow for reasonable development of the site in a manner compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and consistent with the hillside design guidelines. Given the street and garage characteristics and the city's desire through the hillside design guidelines to minimize grading and mass and bulk of houses, which a longer driveway would exacerbate, requiring a code-compliant driveway length would be practically difficult and an unnecessary hardship. So that is the first finding for the setback variances. The intent of the maximum building height requirement is to assist addressing mass, bulk, and scale concerns. The house appears as one story along Valentine Drive, and while it is full height visible from Roar, the house will be set back approximately 100 feet from this street, so that is going to mitigate some of the perceived height of the proposed residence. Staff did want to point out there is an opportunity to reduce the overall height of the house by eliminating the western planter wall and the understory area below the lowest balcony. This is suggested as a condition of approval, and let me go over that now just for clarity. So this is the rear elevation from Roar, and what I'm suggesting, and I'll also look at a side elevation, is to eliminate this planter wall and then the wall in back of it, which is in line with the lowest balcony, push that more into the site, into the hill. That would reduce the overall height of the house as well as the sort of the perceived mass. And you can see that the north elevation. The mouse isn't. Oh, here we go. So eliminate this planter wall, and then this wall that extends from the lowest balcony. Move that back to be in line with the facade of the residence on the ground floor, and that would reduce the overall height. It would still exceed the maximum, but it would probably reduce the overall height maybe 7, 8, 10 feet. So proceeding with my presentation. The intent of restricting retaining walls in the front yard is to provide open streetscapes and reduce overall grading. Because of the site topography and the landscaping that will be required, the retaining walls will not be readily visible from Valentine Drive, and the streetscape will be open. Grading will increase to support the driveway in the front yard. However, overall, only the eastern 25% of the site will be graded to enable construction of the site as well as, construction of the house as well as the driveway in the yard. The western approximately 75% of the site will not be graded. Moving on to the second variance findings, there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use and or development of the property that do not generally apply to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. Because the subject site along Valentine Drive has an S-shaped curvature and the site characteristics of many developed lots, many R1R developed lots within the city. The S-shaped frontage is unique and distorts the street front setback area. Resiting the house to comply with the setback and driveway length standards would increase the grading, decrease the amount of ungraded open space on the site, and would likely result in a taller house. Related to the retaining wall variance, while sloping lots are not an exception in the city's R1R zone, there are many areas of the city that are zoned R1R that were mass graded or terraced to allow development of single-family homes. So development of these graded and terraced sites typically does not require the use of retaining walls to gain residential access to the garage or the front entrance of these houses. The third finding, the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property improvements. because the requested deviations meet the intent of their respective regulations, and the project is developed in a similar fashion to other homes in the neighborhood. And then finally, the granting of the variance, this is the fourth finding, the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance because the project is the construction of a single-family house, is developed in a similar manner to other homes in the neighborhood, contains an oversized two-car garage, is designed in a shallow form, and finally, the front yard will remain open. So concluding, every discretionary decision related to development in the R1R zone requires that certain considerations related to the hillside design policy be evaluated. This evaluation was done in the staff report, and the project is generally consistent with this policy as described in the staff report and the findings. So that concludes my presentation. Staff is recommending approval of the project with some conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. I do have one question in regards to staff's recommendation for condition number 9. It was in regards to eliminate the planter adjacent to the western portion, as well as the balcony. If you can please pull up one of the plans, and I think A6 would be a good plan to reference as far as just get clarification on staff's recommendation. If you don't mind pulling that up. This one would work fine, too.
It'll work, or do you want me to pull up the? It's probably the same plan.
You know,
but
if
let
you can
me-
go to the section as well, that works, too. I think it was the one after this or the slide before. That's
Yeah.
fine, too. So I think what staff is recommending is that I'm going to call the garage level the third level, and then the second level would be the middle, and the first would be the lowest one. Staff is recommending that the first level, that the planter in front of its balcony, thank you for highlighting that, be reduced, as well as that, I'm going to call that another wall below it, and then so that the only thing that would be exposed would be, let's call that the second pier from the left, so that it would reduce the overall height so that when the lowest exit from the ground, are you recommending that that is removed so that it reduces the massing in such a tall wall?
Yes, I'm recommending that this planter be eliminated in its entirety, and then this pier/wall that's in line with the railing of the lowest level deck be moved. It would be east, but it would be moved to basically in line with the facade wall here. So it would come, oops, I'm sorry. So it would come down right about here and exit the ground here as opposed to this area. And that would probably eliminate 6-7 feet in height of the house. And the lowest balcony would, basically project from the facade.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. I think this is very helpful for later discussions, and I appreciate that. Okay, moving on to the next portion of the hearing. I'd like to call up speakers. The applicant. I do see 2 cards, so I'm going to start with the applicant architect, Lana Ruby. Please go ahead and state your name, your address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Gina Ruby, and I am at 2706 Artesia Boulevard in Redondo Beach. So we have created and submitted this design in keeping as much as we can with the hillside design guidelines, as well as all the zoning codes for the R1R residential zone. However, as Mr. Kiesel stated in his staff report, we do need those 3 variances: the height, the setbacks, and the retaining walls. You know, the topography of the lot, we have a 76% slope that creates the hardships in complying with all those guidelines. As far as the conditions of approval, I don't have any problem with removing that planar wall and moving that, the structure for the understory back. I think probably about 3 or 4 feet would be okay. That would bring the height up quite a bit, probably 5 or 6 feet, and minimize that overall.
So just for clarification, when you say 3 to 4 feet, we're talking about in line with the second level?
Back to, yeah, where the outer wall would be on the
Second level?
west side, yeah, there. Yeah,
Oh,
we
the
can
third
try to
level,
get
yes,
it
yeah.
pretty close
Or the first level,
to
I'm sorry.
that. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's not a problem, I agree with that. So what we would do is we would create sort of an overhang with the balcony below and just keep the consistency, you know, and it'll match the hillside there. And as far as all of the other conditions, I think we're okay,
Great.
yeah.
Is that anything else you'd like to add?
I think if you guys have any more questions.
I will have further questions, but I'm going to go through the remaining cards. I'll see if there's any callers. But thank you very much for speaking. I'd like to call up next Mr. Jorge Lara.
Good morning, staff, and good morning, everyone.
Go ahead, Mr. Lara, go ahead, state your name and your address, just for the record. I appreciate that.
My name is Jorge Lara, reside at 511 Camino Real, Redondo Beach, 90277. Yes. So all I would like to add is that when the lot was purchased, it was deemed...
Mr. Lara, you need to get in front of the microphone and repeat everything you said.
No problem. Good morning, everyone, staff, and everyone that is watching. My name is Jorge Lara. I reside at 511 Camino Real, Redondo Beach, 90277. When I purchased the lot, I did some investigations, went to water department, gas company, sewer, public works, fire department. And as far as my understanding, before the lot was purchased, there was a plan that was approved. Apparently, because of the hardship of the lot, the construction there went on. There's records that the plans were approved, I want to say in 1995, 97. So all I like to add to interest neighbors and staff is that the lot itself it's a R1 buildable lot. And that's what we'd like to do, build a nice home for the area. That's it.
Great, thank you, Mr. Lara.
No problem.
I appreciate that. Next, I'd like to call up to ask Mr. Roger Kiesel if there's any callers online that would like to speak on behalf of this project.
No callers at this point.
Okay, moving on to the next. I'm just going to go ahead and give my thoughts on the project. I did take some time to go out to the site. I do know it's a very challenging site. We do have an average current slope that's very challenging. I mean, you can kind of drive around up and down the neighborhood and see that these slopes are, you know, at some locations 80%, you know, and it gets very steep. And I did go through the records of this property, and I do believe in 1989, there was a previous application that was approved to construct a single-family home on this property with a reduced setback as well. So, and I do appreciate Roger Kiesel's analysis, going through the mass and scale, the challenges, the exceptional hardships that's required for the findings. As the further away you push this building away from the street, that means the building will rise higher above the ground. And if you were to provide a code compliant driveway, it further would raise above the ground. So I do see that there are exceptional circumstances of the land for the height and the setback. I do have some questions in regards to the driveway and the retaining walls. If I may ask, I apologize, is it Gina? Gina. Gina. Just some questions here. I know one of the requests is to have a 13-foot tall retaining wall in the front setback. Mr. Kiesel, would you mind pulling up the colored site plan? I wasn't, while he's pulling it up, I'm just going to kind of go over my thought before, and it's going to set me up for the questions here. I know that the retaining walls are expanding the front yard in the front, so it extends closer to the northern portion of the yard, of the lot. So that's just going further up Valentine. And I know you're saying that these retaining walls, or these walls, are going to be 18 inches. Now, I wanted to ask, because I couldn't find any spot elevations of the top of wall, the natural grade, or finished surfaces, or what the top of curb, so it was hard for me to understand what exactly these retaining walls are doing. And I know it's maybe 13 feet on one elevation, so I was hoping to get clarification on, maybe you can help me identify maybe your justifications, or if you can explain where are the exceptional circumstances of the hardship of the land to have these retaining walls, and maybe investigate whether it's potential to eliminate some of these walls, because there might be potential ways to eliminate these walls and not ask for such a tall variance.
I'm having trouble opening it, so give me a few minutes.
Sure.
I can explain from this section too, if we can continue while Roger tries to find the site plan. So if you look at the dash line where that footing, that's actually the retaining wall for the structure of the house, where that kicks out to 2 feet. That dash line represents where we would have to cut, come into, build the actual retaining wall that goes to the structure. So what's represented there in that section, that 13 feet, is the minimum that I think that we would need based on our soils report and our structural engineer that we just came up with, what we can ask for to the minimum depth that we would have to go to, dig, fill, recompact, and get all of that land back in there. So it works to, for part of the construction, as well as the driveway, the courtyard, and all of that.
So I didn't find a reference cut, but I was able to understand where it's from, and it's obvious from the garage. Once Roger does have the site plan available, I want to reference other areas where the section cut is not provided. But since we're on this slide here, I'm going to shelf maybe the retaining walls. I'm going to call it on the north part, because the retaining walls are not shown on the elevations, and we'll bring that discussion up later on, since we're dealing with technical difficulties. But one of the comments I read from Public Works is that one of their comments was there were to be no retaining walls in the public right-of-way. And I noticed from this section here, you do have a retaining wall in the public right-of-way. So if you look left of the property line, right to the property line, you have a retaining wall there. Do you know if that's possible to achieve? Because I just want to bring up this comment from Public Works.
Yeah, and I just received that actually earlier today. This is the ideal situation to actually get, proper equipment and to properly excavate that. Oh, sorry. That is the proper way to do that so that we can excavate and get the retaining wall built for the home. It's the whole length of the front of the building. So we would have to look at other options, but that's the minimum that we would ask for.
So just for because the zoning code doesn't have any purview into the street, the public right-of-ways. This might be a pretty important point when, if this project were to move forward, when you get in the plan check, that you're well aware of this condition from the Public Works Department. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I think it's a kind of important point, because I understand you're filling in this area to create a front yard and a driveway to the house, and I understand for the driveway why that's
and
necessary.
We would address that with Public Works and maybe have to take that same footing and pull it back to keep it inside property line, which is probably what we're gonna have to do. Yeah.
Just to talk about, like, we'll get to that since we're on a flow here, talking about the driveway area. Do you know what the slope is of your driveway? Because the code, my next kind of point is talking about height of the building, so it's going to be related to the height.
Yeah, so we are, I just sent, I don't think Roger got a chance because it was so late to put the revised plans in, but we're at about 7.5%.
7.5%.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring up the elevations.
Yeah, the new ones that I sent to you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I got some comments, some of your comments, and put as much information to clarify those things. I think even on that, is that the new section? Yeah, so it shows the driveway slope. Yeah, there.
7.6%.
7.6%.
Correct.
Okay. These are just, since we're talking about the variance request is for height, and we do have to find some consistency with the hillside design guidelines and reduced mass. These are the reasons why I'm talking about just kind of walking through and maybe getting your take on justifying the findings. So I think it's really good that we went over the conditions of approval, because I think that would definitely help out the project as far as reducing the height of the request, because if we can eliminate those walls, and some of my points here where if we could get, the maximum slope for a driveway is 15 feet with transitions. If we can try to bring it down as much as possible, that's why I was asking. I couldn't find the actual driveway slope. But I think that would be absolutely helpful. Try to work with the neighbors as far as what their concerns are in the neighborhood. I think that would be helpful for your findings as well, as far as, once again, this is about height. We're asking to deviate and extend the height of the building. So I do appreciate that. It seems like you are, in this slide here, are you providing a steeper slope for the driveway? Is that we're getting at, or you're just identifying now at 7 feet, or 7%?
It's always been that way. The reason why we have it that way is to work with, obviously, the existing street and then keep the first story, as low as possible. Because if we make the slope, if we lessen the slope, then we raise the house. So we're trying to, keep the happy medium with the slope and just have that 10-foot first
Right.
floor.
Yeah, I know that a run of 8 feet is kind of hard to work with slope, but I just want to get a better understanding. As I mentioned before, there were no spot elevations for like finished surfaces and natural grade and top of curb and finished floors, and I thought I'd just kind of try to figure that out as I analyze this, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Kiesel, would you mind bringing up the colored site plan, please?
Yep.
So when we first started talking about this item, I was asking about retaining walls. Now, once again, this is about 13-foot tall retaining walls in the street front. And I know there's going to be, it's on the north side and the south side of the building, there's going to be retaining walls. If you can show, I think you pulled up the, there we go. Would you mind zooming in maybe at the building and the street and the gray area? So So on this plan, I understand the green areas of the landscape, the brown areas of the building, and the gray is the proposed flat, this would be the finished surface areas of the building. Now, I understand on the south portion, that's going to be the driveway, and other portions in front of the building, I'm going to call it the north part, I think we're flattening and we're creating a flat front yard.
Correct.
Now, I know your plans say that it's going to be an 18-inch high planter wall, but I think by the contour lines from the street, it drops about maybe 9 feet. So I'm not too sure if that's, are you asking for a 13-foot retaining wall at that portion of the lot as well as south of the driveway?
Yes, so the 18 inches is actually revised from, I think, the plan that you had. So the 18-inch planter walls are everything in the front setback on top of the courtyard. So retaining walls below. So that's what that 18 inches is.
So it's the freeboard of the new, so with, and that's why finished surfaces, natural grade would be so helpful,
Yes.
especially when we're
And
asking
we
for,
can absolutely add
for
that.
retaining walls. And it's very hard for me to understand this. Because, by going by the topographic contour lines you provided on your drawings, starting from the top, the top of curb from the Valentine, and extending past where on the northern portion where the retaining wall would be, there's an approximately 9-foot drop there. In order to reduce the amount of retaining walls, one of the tenets of the design guidelines is to reduce in creating, flat yards in the front when we're creating landform, alterations to the natural contour. And I think that would actually help you in some of your requests for retaining walls, especially being in the front. The other thing I want to talk about the side of the yard is one of the code sections that require for landscaping, the street front setback is required to have 50% landscaping. I think it would be helpful, because I understand you want to create a flat front yard there, and that's the whole purpose of that. It would help you achieve if we reduce or maybe eliminated that retaining wall on that portion of the north portion of the yard. And what I mean by that, maybe for the other viewers or maybe watching, Roger, would you mind having the west elevation up?
Sure.
So in the rear elevation here, I know the retaining walls are not shown. So on the screen here is of the rear elevation. So to the left would be the north portion of the front yard, and I know it's not shown. Particularly, I wanted to ask if that was necessary, if we can eliminate as much requests, because it would help you out in compliance with the landscape within the front setback, because once again, the code does require 50% landscaping in the front setback, and with the 3-car garage, with a wide driveway, it does take up a lot of that as well. I wanted to ask maybe details, thoughts about that retaining wall. Are you open to maybe reducing some of the requests there?
I'm open to doing that, yes. And I think we can achieve that with the structural and the geo report, the soils report is the reason why we were asking for that 13 feet. So I think for just the courtyard portion, yes, we can.
Okay. And of course, the retaining walls, this is a very challenging site. And I'm definitely acknowledging that. And I do want to talk about and I think the real request of this 13 feet has to do with the driveway when you're as viewed from the south elevation. Would you mind pulling up I think that's sheet A7, Roger?
Do you want it on the PowerPoint or the,
That's fine. If you can just pull it up and maybe enhance it.
the north elevation?
No, the south elevation. So on the south elevation here, I can see that I think what you're asking for is the retaining wall for the driveway there. Now I'm going to call it to the right side of the screen. Is that correct? Where the
Correct. That's where the 13-foot retaining wall is shown on the section. So we can work with it a little bit. It's basically in two parts. It's one that we need for construction, like I said, for the cut and fill. But we can work with that on the courtyard side. on the
You know,
north
there
side.
are other methods that people have done to eliminate retaining walls as much as possible, as far as creating like a bridge. Have you investigated that, just to eliminate, because I know, I'm going to continue over here, because I know there's going to be a stairway access that may come into play. I just didn't fully understand everything, and I just kind of wanted to hear from you, you know, what your thought is behind this, why is it designed that way? And once again, we're going through the findings, you know, are there exceptional circumstances? Are there ways to avoid a variance? Because if we can, it's worth speaking about.
Well, based on our soils report, I think that we need that retaining wall variance to be, you know, we're allowed 5 feet. So due to the topography of that, I don't think that we can utilize that depth. Also, again, in building the retaining wall for the structure of the home, that is what our structural team came up with, you know, for
So when we talk
construction.
about retaining walls for the building, that would just be an impact wall to us, like as far as not a freestanding retaining wall. I understand what you're saying. I'm just talking about the driveway and potentially, I know the stairs go down the side, is that correct? When you, on the elevations and on the floor plans, there is a stairway that's supposed to be going down on the south portion of the lot, and I see that there is drawn staircases that go across the second level. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was actually revised on another drawing. So these stairs were kind of conceptual. If we're gonna get rid of the bottom planter wall and move that understory back, we would eliminate that stair as well. There's another set of stairs that will go away. But I
Were the
would,
stairs at grade, or were they going to be?
they were gonna be part of the building, so not on grade.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it would be suspended. Would it be cantilevered, or would it be? It would be cantilevered.
From the building. So this is incorrect. This is showing actually the stair in the window. So there's another drawing that shows it correctly. But those would be part of the building and not on grade.
Is it possible to? Once again, you know, I don't want to call the impact walls. Well, if you didn't, let's just for discussion's sake, if we didn't bring in soil import, and we were to do a bridge configuration, would it be able to eliminate the retaining walls?
We would still need those retaining walls, and it's actually, that's one of the things that we were going over with our structural team, to ask for the variance to not do, you know, the bridge design. We would still need on that side more than 5 feet.
Because I'm curious, because I think with the retaining wall in the public right-of-way, that's to help accommodate some of the fill as well. I'm just trying to think options and balance it with Public Works comment here, and whether, you know, if we could reduce as many retaining walls as possible in the street front setback.
We can definitely bring it into property line and figure, you know, something else out from property line to the right of way.
Okay. In regards to the garage design, Roger, would you please pull up the third level or the garage level? You know, while he's pulling it up, yeah, when I visited the site, I know the street's very narrow, and even when I visited the site, I didn't have a place to park. You know what I mean? And I know that a lot of people, they'll park on their own driveways, they'll parallel park on their driveways and so forth. Even when I parked on the street, I was parking in one of the lanes. So it's pretty difficult. It's a pretty difficult road. And one of the comments was in regards to street parking and if a car were to park on a reduced size driveway, the trunk end would overhang onto the street. So a standard parking lot in the commercial area would be 20 feet depth, right? And if we're reducing it down to 8 feet 2 inches, we're talking about a little under 12 feet. Kind of, if a car were to park, it would project into the right of way. And I know you have a 3-car garage design, and the zoning code only requires for the house of this size only to have 2 parking spaces. Roger, what I wanted to ask about is the parking garage for the 1 bay door. So we have the 3rd floor, and I know the 1 bay. Once again, if this was truly a parking space, it would definitely help out. Some of the concerns of the neighborhood. I was wondering, is it possible to relocate that elevator, maybe where the bathroom is, or to truly get another car to park in there?
We could do that, yes.
Because I think that would help out maybe. And once again, I'm acknowledging your house is, from a required parking space, is overparked. But, I think it would be helpful for the neighborhood. It's not going to be required, but I think it would be helpful it seems like you had the intent of having a 3-car garage. If we relocated that would be helpful.
That is the reason why I requested 3-car garage.
Okay. And I can see that the elevator is projecting into it. I think that would be a nice gesture to the neighborhood, and it would even help you, even during the holidays when people come over and people.
That's the reason why
Yeah.
I requested 3-car garage.
Okay. I'm kind of going over my notes, so I apologize for the pause here.
No worries.
So I kind of want to, because the only one I'm analyzing right now is the retaining walls in the street front. If we eliminate of course there has to be areas for you to walk from the driveway or the street to your front door. We have to be reasonable about that. If we eliminate the front yard, especially in the north part, we would eliminate much of the retaining walls that would show up on the north side. And it seems like if you are intending to eliminate the stairways on the south side, is that correct? or-
Yes, due to taking away,
The-
revising the understory.
Okay,
we would
got
do
it,
that.
got it. And if we eliminate the front yard, and once again, I'm pointing out, it will help you out with your 50% landscaping, because I think it's still achievable. You have approximately a 70-foot wide lot. If you have a 30-foot wide driveway, that's almost 50%. And if you eliminate that front yard, it will bring you to compliance. You know what I mean, as far as landscaping.
The flat work?
The flat work, that's
Yeah,
correct.
that's not a problem.
Yeah, to bring the courtyard back, yeah, not a problem.
If you fill it in, how tall do you, if we were to guesstimate, how tall if we can go on that south elevation, how tall will that retaining wall be for the driveway? Is it still going to be 13 feet?
It would still be 13 feet.
Okay.
And that's just due to soils and what we have to do, the depth into the bedrock.
And if I'm not mistaken, that will only be on the south side because the slope is going south. So, correct me if I'm wrong, the
Correct.
north side won't be 13 feet, shorter.
Correct. I think Valentine, it does have a cross slope where it does get higher on the north side. It's the south side where it drops more, I don't want to say precipitously, but it does get steeper there.
Yeah.
So, have we investigated maybe reducing the floor level of the garage? Maybe, I don't know how much we're going to achieve out of that, because I still think even if you were to get a retaining wall there, we may maybe even squeeze out maybe a foot or less. I'm just trying to think if we, because it's such a short run for the driveway.
But if we do that, the house is not going to look uniform with the street. It's going to look.
No, I hear what you're saying. I did take a time to drive around the neighborhood. I do see some houses that it's not like the houses are 5 feet below top of curve of the street. It might be a foot or two, and I don't know how much we're really going to gain from here, because it is, once again, it's a very challenging site, and there are exceptional circumstances. I can see that for the height, with the extreme slope, the average current slope of the lot, and it's very challenging to get to satisfy the hillside design guidelines without a reduced setback. I'm in agreement there. And, I'm just talking about and kind of going over retaining walls, and it will help you once again in my thought process here for design review as far as hillside design guidelines and reducing massing. But I'm kind of thinking out loud here. That's all. Okay, I don't have any further questions. Is there anything else you folks would like to add?
I think that's it.
No, that's it. I mean, for the retaining wall on the south side, we will try, when we get to that point, try to match it with the hillside plantation, I don't know, trees and stuff. It may not even be visible because the house next door will block it, so I think it's a good way of hiding the wall, if indeed we need to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think landscaping would help out too.
Yeah, we can do something on the wall, grass, or, you know, that.
You
I've
can work
seen
with Roger during the design review application as far as landscaping, but we're just talking about
Correct.
development standards for height and setback and driveway width and so forth. But I do appreciate those gestures. So once again, I'm going to ask you if you have any other comments or concerns before I close the meeting and take this project under submission.
No, thank you for your time and the staff
Thank
and
you.
the city.
Yeah, thank you very much. And once again, I want to reiterate my appreciation of both of you to answer my questions here, because I do want to give some considerate thought into each of these requests and be respectful to the code as far as making the findings. And I do appreciate your elaboration, your clarifications of all my questions, and I can't express as much gratitude for that. So thank you very much. I'm going to take this case under submission, and I am going to conclude the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the hearing is now officially closed. I want to thank everyone for their participation. Right now, it's about 10:55 on Wednesday, June 5th, and the hearing is now officially closed. Yep.